So, it's taken me a while to decide to write all of this down because this story has multiple parts that may or may not be connected. It might be a long one and a little anticlimactic, as it's not as creepy or traumatic as some other stories. But it's taken weeks for me to get a good night's sleep since Ronald Simmons came banging on my door. Here's the setup. I live on a little dirt road in southern Ohio, which sounds rural and farmy, but it sits right up against a complex of subsidized apartments and a major thoroughfare for the area. It's a weird mix of transients and longtime residents, young families and lone, elderly people. One house might be meticulously kept and maintained, but then the neighbor might have a jet ski in the yard and a tree wrapped in chicken wire as a makeshift cage for their pet parrot. Not a random example, it's a real thing. I've lived here for nearly 10 years, and for more than 9 of those years, it's just been my daughter and I. She's 10 now, but I still don't like to let her play alone in the yard, and I'm obsessed about keeping our doors closed and deadbolted at all times, even when we're just chilling at home. I keep to myself and don't ask questions or cause problems. I'm an introvert whose primary goal in life is to leave and be left alone. And then Tom moved in. So imagine that the neighborhood is kind of laid out like a 4-rung ladder. I live on the 3rd rung, and going left to right takes you to a road that leads to the aforementioned main thoroughfare and exits the neighborhood. Tom moves into a house near one of these exit roads, just a few houses down from me on the opposite side of the street, which I was wholly unaware of, until I was out in my yard one day a few years ago, and a passing car slowed and the window rolled down. Now, I've had sketchy experiences with scammers and solicitors in the neighborhood before. There's a whole story about a group that tried to convince me to get in their car and take money out of the ATM for them. So I'm highly skeptical and suspicious of any strangers that want to just stop for a chat. Plus, I had never seen this guy before. Heavy set, salt and pepper hair, heavy-lidded eyes, and probably in his 50s at least. I was 26 at the time, so he had to be around twice my age. So Tom slows the car and rolls down the passenger window. He says something, but I can't hear him, so I take a hesitant step closer to the vehicle, hoping that he's just asking for directions. "Hey girl," he says, and all my hackles immediately go up at the positively greasy way he says the word girl. "I'm Tom. Just moved in down the street there." "Oh," I tell him, off my footing. "Okay." "What's your name, honey?" Now, calling me honey is usually a great way to make me upset, but there was something about him, even in those first few moments, that set off alarm bells. Sometimes it's not a big deal to tell a creep to screw off, but other times there's a voice that goes, "This one is a time bomb. Do not set him off." And so I tell him my name in the hope that he's just being neighborly because, hey, maybe he's a nice grandpa who hasn't gotten the memo about using girl and honey. It's Southern Appalachia. He wouldn't be the only one. But then, "You got a boyfriend?" I think every woman probably has that little, oh god moment every time this question gets asked by a random. I'm so taken aback and still trying to feel out the interaction that I just say something in the negative because it's true. I don't have a boyfriend. For a good reason, I'm gay, but at this point in my life, that's still very private information, and I don't feel obligated or inclined to provide that detail to him. "You should let me take you out sometime," he says. "We can have a few beers." At this point, all of my skin is crawling and I decline as politely as I can. He persists and the interaction feels like it takes a lifetime. But I'm guessing it's about 10 or 15 minutes because I successfully inch my way back to my front door and make an excuse to go back inside. I was hoping that would be the last time that I would have to talk to Tom, but of course it wasn't. For weeks, it seemed like every time that I stepped outside, there was Tom in his car, slowing down to talk to me about this or that, but mostly trying to convince me to go out with him. "When are we gonna go to dinner?" I always said no as politely as I could. It was annoying and stressful, but manageable. And then it escalated. I'm sitting at home one day and there's a knock at my door. I don't have a peephole or any means of knowing who's at my door without sticking my whole dang head out my front window. So mostly, I just don't answer the door unless I'm expecting someone. If it's someone that I know, they'll call me on my phone or announce themselves at the door. So I just let the knocking go. And then my doorbell rings. And then there's more knocking, and more knocking, and more freaking knocking. So finally I'm like, maybe the neighbor's house is on fire or something, I don't know. I answer the door and of course it's Tom. "Hey girl," he says with a slick, ominous grin that never reaches his eyes. "How you doing?" I want to tell him to go screw himself, but now more than ever, my instincts are telling me not to make him angry. He's clearly not afraid to push a boundary, and he lives basically just 2 or 3 houses down. All I can imagine is him going home and stewing over my insults, my rejection, and then only having to walk like 2 minutes to get back at me. So I make the conversation as short as possible, decline all of his advances as politely as possible, and deadbolt my door as quickly as possible once he's gone. He starts coming around at least once a day, and I stop answering the door. He persists with his knocking, pounding loudly and angrily on the door when I won't answer. But I am not going to voluntarily engage with this dude in any way. One day, I'm sitting on my living room floor working on something and the knocking starts. I ignore it. It gets more insistent and angry. He calls my name, but he can't prove that I'm home, so screw him. And then, he tries the handle on my door. I always deadbolt the door, thank God, but the actual door handle is usually unlocked. So I was sitting right there, not 3 feet from the door, when I saw and heard it turn violently. If it hadn't been deadbolted, he would have walked right in and found me sitting on the floor. I probably should have called the police, but I had never called the cops on anyone before. It seemed so extreme. He went away shortly after and I just let it go. So stupid. On another day, I'm out mowing my lawn, headphones in. When I look up, here comes Tom. I can't get away from this dude and it starts making me feel absolutely trapped. Of course he wants to talk, and because I'm a non-confrontational moron at the time, I stop mowing and I pull out my headphones. He tells me that he can help me with the mowing. A pretty girl like me shouldn't have to mow her own yard. All I gotta do is come down and ask him. He tells me how he helps out Eric all the time. Eric lives 2 houses down from me, almost directly across from Tom. And Eric is a constant, habitual public drunk. He doesn't bother anyone, just staggers around his yard, hangs out on the couch in his driveway, and feeds these stray cats. Which is problematic because it means we have a booming population of feral, half-mad cats running amok. But I feel for him. I'm an animal person, so I get it. I've seen Tom and Eric together sometimes, and I guess that they're friends. Tom says that he mows Eric's grass and that he can mow mine too. But I've never seen Tom mow anything. And besides, like, holy crap man, just leave me alone. He goes on to say that he sees me driving by his house sometimes. Yeah, there's only 2 ways off the street, and the shorter route is past his house. So I have, by default, driven past his house. But I won't anymore. Never again. I'll take the long way if it kills me. I decline his help, and I decline and decline and decline. I start avoiding being outside at all costs. I usher my daughter as quickly as I can to and from the car. I carry groceries in as quickly as possible. But even then, he can see me from his house. And as I'm rushing towards the door, I will sometimes hear a loud, low wolf whistle. And I'll look up to see Tom waving at me. I usually pretend that I don't see him or hear him, and I deadbolt the door as quickly as I can. At some point in the following days or weeks, I order a pizza. When there's a knock at the door, I answer it immediately. For a bewildering second, I can't figure out why my pizza man is shirtless. But it's not my pizza man. It's Tom in his enormous, bare beer gut. He's swaying a little bit and he leans in against my doorframe. He pushes a piece of paper into my hand and explains that this is his phone number. He asks again if I've got a boyfriend yet. At this point, I'm desperate and I feel like it's a bad idea to just blurt out that I'm a lesbian, Tom. For one, I feel like this won't deter him. In fact, I feel like it might just make him upset and make me a target for something even worse. In fact, it might make me a target with the whole neighborhood. Which sounds extreme, but the first year that I lived here, a guy was beaten to death just up the street. He wasn't gay and it's a longer story, but I've always stayed aware that violence wasn't an impossibility. Plus, I don't have a girlfriend either. It's just me and my daughter all the time. I just needed this guy to leave me alone. I've never met someone who was so completely put me on edge. I kept thinking how easy it would be for him to just push past me into the house. I could see him doing it in my head. There was a constant feeling that he was just on the edge of moving, of pouncing. So I just lie to him and say that, yes, I have a boyfriend and that we're very happy. Thank you so much, hetero bliss. He grins that dark, greasy grin and he says, I ain't seen no man around here. He's watching me in my house, watching who comes and goes. This and the fact that he's actually trying to challenge my lie makes my blood go cold. It's like it's a game for him. Because he doesn't say it angrily, he says it like it's cute. Like he's caught me against a wall. Like I'm prey. And he knows that I'm defenseless. I mean, I'm not defenseless. Even as I'm imagining him pushing his way into the house, I'm also imagining what I can use as a weapon, planning to go straight for his eyes, his nose, the groin. I wouldn't go down without a fight, that's for sure. But I make up something stupid, like how my pretend boyfriend is in the military, and that he's away right now, but we're very happy, and no, I didn't want to have any beer you're carrying with you for some reason. He launches into a litany of questions about my pretend soldier boyfriend. How many trucks does he have? Is he good looking? Do I think that Tom is good looking? Does he take care of me the way Tom could take care of me? Is Tom good looking? Tom has 2 trucks, you know. He could take care of me. Is my boyfriend a black guy? The last question shuts me down entirely and somehow makes me both scared and more upset. I already know that he's a creepy piece of crap, but now he's a racist, creepy piece of crap. This guy just keeps getting worse and worse. I rebuke him again and tell him that I have to go. He says, well, what your boyfriend don't know won't hurt him. I make him leave. He comes around periodically for a few more years, leaves some gifts at my door at some point, an old doll and some kind of toys from his garage. I think that they were for my daughter, but I just threw them away. It seems to go on forever and I debate calling the cops. I keep thinking that he's just right down the road and if I call the cops, it's going to become a whole thing. It might escalate more. What are the cops going to do? They can't be there every day, and he hasn't even done anything criminal yet. I don't have a leg to stand on. But eventually, gradually, he leaves me alone. Thank God, I think he got a girlfriend, maybe. I don't know. The whole thing has taken place over the last 4 or 5 years, but the last several months, maybe 12 or 18 months or so, have been very quiet. And I can only assume that he had moved away, or had gotten the message, or all the above. I barely even see him. Cut to about 3 weeks ago. I'm sitting on my couch late in the evening around 10 o'clock, when I hear a noise out on the sidewalk. I pause and listen and then someone turns my doorknob. It's deadbolted like always, thankfully. I'm alarmed now and the banging at my door starts. I can't see who it is, but I know that I'm not expecting any visitors. The banging turns frantic, urgent, but I wait. More knocking and knocking and knocking. I think that maybe it's my parents. Maybe something has happened to my dad. He had a history of heart problems. But why wouldn't they call? Why wouldn't they right now just call out and announce who they are? And then I hear a low, male voice say, "Man, screw this." Oh God. More knocking and turning on my doorknob. Knocking even on my window now, the one just beside the door. I'm scared now, but I also know for sure that I don't know who it is, and I'm not opening that door. It also made me kind of mad. Like, what? You're coming up on my sidewalk and banging on my door while I'm trying to play some Animal Crossing. So I go to the door and shout through it, demanding to know who's there. He calls back, "Nikki, it's me, Ronald Simmons. I've got Eric's beer, let me in." Okay, my name's not Nikki. I don't even know a Nikki, let alone a Ronald Simmons. And Eric lives 2 more houses down. Clearly, he just has the wrong house, and this situation should be easily cleared up. "I don't know who you are." I tell him through the door, "You have the wrong house, you need to go." But he just bangs on the door some more, insists that he doesn't have the wrong house. "Come on, Nikki, stop messing around and just open the door. It's me, Ronald Simmons. I have Eric's beer." He yells at me, tries the door again, bangs on the window in an absolute frenzy. "My name isn't Nikki," I yell back. "You have the wrong house. You need to get out of here or I'm calling the cops." But he just keeps shouting and banging, calling me by the wrong name, begging me to just open the door. And he keeps repeating his name, his whole name, Ronald Simmons. "It's me, it's Ronald Simmons. I have Eric's beer. Open the door, just open the door. It's Ronald Simmons." We go back and forth for what feels like an eternity, but probably was only 10 minutes or less. By this time, my kid had heard the commotion and is scared, and I'm not sure if he's going to escalate, but he definitely isn't listening to me, and he doesn't seem to be going away. I'm freaked out by how he keeps begging me to just open the door. Like maybe he doesn't have the wrong house at all and is just trying to get me to come outside. Tom has also come to mind, because he and Eric, they're friends, remember? So even though I don't want to, I call the cops. I tell Ronald Simmons that I've called the cops and everything goes quiet for a moment. I think maybe that was enough to make him go away. I explained to the operator what's happening and they instantly dispatched someone. The operator asked if the man was still there, right as Ronald Simmons begins banging on the door and the windows again. "Yeah, he's still here. I think he's confused but he won't leave." "No, I don't know him. His name is Ronald Simmons." "No, I don't know what he looks like. I can't see him." "No, I'm not going to put my face in the window. He's still hitting the window and the door." "You need me to look to get a description." "God, okay." So I pull away the curtain and then lift away the heavy, difficult Venetian blinds. But it's pitch black and my porch light doesn't work. All I can see is a bicycle ditched on my front sidewalk. I hear a woman shouting and it's difficult to make out, but it sounds like she's yelling at Ronald Simmons, telling him that he's got the wrong house. I think that it might be one of my immediate neighbors, but I'm not sure. It doesn't stop him. He tells her to screw off and he keeps yelling at me. It feels like a lifetime passes, and the awareness that some intruder is just a wall away is overwhelmingly surreal. I can hear him pacing up and down the sidewalk talking to me and himself. It feels like maybe he's searching for an entry point, but I can't tell for sure. All I can do is listen. I explain everything to the operator as it's happening, and it really doesn't take very long for the flashing lights to appear on my street. I hear officers calling out to Ronald Simmons, and then an exchange of dialogue, but I'm still not opening that door. It's hard to make out all the words, but I distinctively hear an officer say, "So, why are you out here bothering this nice lady?" Finally, somebody knocks and announces that he's one of the police officers. When I finally open the door, the said officer asks a few questions. Did he try to actually break into the house? I mean, no, but he kept trying my door like a maniac. He was looking for Eric's home down the street. Yeah, I know that. He wouldn't stop saying it. I tried to tell him that he had the wrong house. This is your bike. No. Okay, we'll make sure that he leaves with it. You have a nice night now. I have no idea what happened from there. No idea if they just took him to Eric's house or what. I saw him briefly standing in the headlights of the cop car on the road, talking to another officer. Skinny, hair buzzed so short as to be non-existent, clothes a little too big. I had never seen him before in my life. I assumed that they didn't arrest him. I guess he really hadn't done anything criminal. But it still took hours for my heart to slow down and the adrenaline to wear off. I didn't sleep. I just waited for him to come back or for something else to happen. In the morning, my daughter and I went outside and found that one of our planter boxes on the porch had been demolished. It was kind of old anyway and probably just got stepped on in the scuffle. I left it alone because it felt weird to touch anything to do with Ronald Simmons. It took several more days for me to finally gather up the scraps and throw it away. It's been 3 full weeks, and yesterday my daughter says, "Mom, didn't we hide our spare key under that box?" When I heard that, my soul left my body. She was right. Our old hiding spot had been really high, and it was very hard to access, so the last time we had used it, I had just tucked it under that planter and forgot to move it again. But when I cleaned the box up, I never saw it. I checked these shrubs and soil nearby. I checked the entire small porch and stoop area. I checked and checked, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Now, maybe it had gotten thrown away with the box. Maybe it was just in the shrubs or the grass or something and I couldn't find it, maybe. But I changed the locks that day, just in case. To beat it all, after a long period of nothing, I was going out to my car one day this week and heard a loud, low wolf whistle. It's Tom, waving at me from up the street. I pretend that I don't see him and I get in my car. There's some other unsettling things going on that are kind of their own story. Like the teenage kid who lives behind me who keeps throwing random toys and household items into my yard from his second-story apartment window. There's also the 2 times this past month that I have been woken up by what I'm fairly certain was someone tapping on my bedroom window in the small dark hours of the morning. But Ronald Simmons really messed me up and has left me in a constant state of vigilance. Living basically alone lends a certain amount of nighttime paranoia. But now, I'm always wildly fluctuating between the 30 and 99% certain that someone is in my house, or just outside of my window, or both. And it doesn't help that it seems like Tom, who still lives just down the street, might possibly have some involvement. Or maybe Ronald Simmons was just some random drunk dude and I'm blowing everything out of proportion. Either way, for the love of God, Ronald Simmons and Tom from down the street, let's not meet again.